Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Expertage. I am Ajinkya Ingle, Marketing Manager at Quadrant Knowledge Solutions. So the idea behind having Expertage was to bring in industry leaders and our expert and experienced analysts together to discuss on important and emerging topics within the information and technology domain. And today we are going to have an engaging panel discussions on the synergies generated by the convergence of DTO, generative AI, and process mining. These advanced technologies are currently transforming business processes and driving digital transformation. And to discuss this, we are very much honored to have a distinguished panelist from iGrafx joining us today. Firstly, Shoeb Javed, who is the Chief Product Officer at iGrafx. Along with him, we have Maxwell Smith, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at iGrafx. From Quadrant Knowledge Solutions, we have two esteemed analysts, Mr. Apoorva Dhawalbhakta, who is the Associate Director of Research for BPM and Process Automation. Along with him, we have Pranjal Singh, who is the Principal Industry Analyst and Chief Analyst for Process Mining and Task Mining. A very warm welcome to all of you. I will now hand over the conversation to Apoorva to start our discussion. Apoorva, over to you.
Thanks, Ajinkya. I think it's a great opportunity for analysts at Quadrant and the kind of traction that we are getting for expertise, the kind of industry leaders that we are getting. It's really a privilege and an honor to speak to all these guys. So without much ado, let me dive right into it. Right. I think Shoaib and Max, obviously I'm throwing open the question to both of you. At Quadrant, especially in the BPM and process automation domain, we are interacting with vendors in the spaces of digital twin of an organization, process mining, task mining, and whatnot, right? Additionally, we can't escape the buzzword of generative AI. So I think considering these 2 points, the first thing that comes to my mind is, what are the synergies that are generated due to the coming together of, say, digital twin of an organization, DTO, generative AI, process mining, and how are vendors like iGrafx or even your competitors probably? How are you guys looking at these developments? What's there in the market? What's the buzzword around there?
Yeah, let me start. First of all, thank you for having us. Right, these topics are very, very interesting to all our customers, prospects, the market in general. So I think there has been a convergence of technologies that have come together that allows companies to make a big step change difference in how they do business, right? And so these technologies include process mining, task mining, Gen AI, process management, simulation, etc. that help create a much better model when you're creating a digital twin of your organization, right? So you have all the data and all the inputs that are necessary to build a better digital model. And what that does then is it allows you to do simulations of outcomes, right? You can say, well, I want to improve one aspect. Maybe I want to improve cost, or I want to improve end user experience. I can try different things on the model itself before I deploy them, right? So you don't have to spend many years and millions of dollars doing something and then finding out it doesn't work, right? So creating accurate models of how your business functions, which is complicated, I think is very beneficial and helpful. So what happens here again is, what Gen AI does in this context is it does 2 or 3 things, right? It helps you first create a better model because you can combine many different sources of information to construct the model. That includes not just generally available information that LLMs are trained on, but also information that's specific to you, which could also include proprietary information that you do not want to share with the rest of the world, right? So you can combine both general knowledge as well as specific information about your business to construct the model. Process mining, of course, helps, as well as task mining, right? They complete the process discovery picture to get an understanding of your as-is business. And then what Gen AI also does is it makes it more accessible to more people. Of course, you have all this information about your systems, your processes, your objectives stored in a system, but how do you get at it? So GenAI makes it easier for everybody to access that information, makes the information much more accessible. And then last but not least, it helps you optimize, right? So it actually understands why things are being done the way they are and how you can make them better without you prompting for it, right? It can actually go through the data on its own and come up with suggestions for improvement or find root causes of problems or even around compliance, right? I mean, the compliance requirements, external compliance requirements, standards, they change constantly, right? So training LLMs in a RAG, repository assisted generation model on those compliance standards could also help you keep up with those changes to make sure that your business, your processes are compliant with those. So very exciting times. All of these technologies are available. They're fairly mature. So the only part left is how do you actually deploy and use them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think exciting times for sure. And while we're on the topic of DTO and process mining, a recent development from iGrafx side, it has really caught our attention, right? For good, obviously. I think iGrafx announcing, the strategic partnership with Intramart, and you guys mentioned that it's specifically for, enhancing the business process automation, solidifying the leadership within the DTO space. So I think connecting to our first question, this development really piqued our interest. And what is it that led you guys for this development? What holds in terms of this development? If you could throw some light on that as well.
So I'll do that, right? I've been closely involved with this partnership. So we have been in the Japanese market now for multiple decades. And interestingly enough, some of our legacy solutions are widely deployed. Some of our new solutions are deployed now. And it turns out that about 20% of Nikkei listed companies in Japan use some form of iGrafx solutions. So we've had a reputation in the market, we've been there. And the market also has been more mature in terms of process and intelligence or just process understanding because of the culture, right? I mean, Japanese companies are much more systematic and they have invented a lot of innovations when it comes to process management and doing processes better, right? So I think it's a natural fit there for that purpose. NTT Intramart is a division of NTT Data. They've also been in this market for a very long time with a platform. And the platform supported, both looking at process intelligence as well as process automation and other aspects of digital transformation, which are now turning into digital DTO, right? So they've been in the market for a while. They have close to 10,000 customers. And they felt that our solutions were the best fit for their overall platform. Now, of course, the Japanese market is quite large for NTT Data as well as NTT Intramart, but they're also a global company, right? The parent NTT Data is $40 billion global services company. Then they have presence in North America as well as other parts of Asia and Europe. And so they want to expand this platform globally. And what they want to do is they want to comprehensively cover the whole process lifecycle, right? To create these living, breathing models for transformation and also use their experiences plus our experiences, their products and our products in a combined offering, a modern SaaS offering. So it made a lot of sense for us, right? We are extremely excited because they have big plans, and so do we, of how to radically change how process intelligence is actually brought to the next level, right? And the part here again is just a product company on its own can't make that happen. It's good, right? That we have the solutions and the technology, but you also need a consulting partner and a partner that can help customers make it real, right? And we believe, right, with NTT Intramart and NTT Data and their customer footprint, they can make this a reality for a lot more customers, right? And that's what's exciting to us about this.
Awesome. I think, it surely is exciting, and we look forward to how, the partnership grows and the kind of results that could be seen from the end customer side, right? I think I'll hand it over to Pranjal if he has any points to add or any questions that he has.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Apoorva. So, Shoaib talked about the partnership. So, I'll just give a quick insights or like the analysis on that. So, I think this partnership marks a pivotal moment in the business process automation market, and emphasizing the importance of integrating process intelligence with a robust BPM solution. So, I think this collaboration enables seamless process discovery, design, and execution, and ultimately driving digital transformation. So, what I think is this partnership serves as a blueprint for the entire industry, which showcasing the potential of combining process intelligence with automation to drive operational efficiency, innovation, and business agility. Right? Yeah. So, so we talked about business agility and process intelligence. So, then my next question is on what should be the approach for the process mining vendors, where they should focus on, like the intelligent process intelligence or the process excellence. So, what is the more important thing?
Yeah, so maybe I can take that one. So we were talking about the different technology pieces earlier, and I guess just to ground us, right? There's a lot of amazing technology that's enabling us to do a lot of amazing things, but ultimately, what are we trying to do here? It's to create business value at the end of the day. So Show mentioned some of that. It's staying compliant, it's reducing costs, it's improving productivity. That's the whole reason that we're endeavoring on this digital transformation journey, creating these digital twins of the organizations, right? And so I really don't think that this is necessarily an either or, right? I think it's a both, and I think at the end of the day, like process excellence is one of those main vectors that you can use to generate that business value, right? But to deliver process excellence and operational excellence, of course, you need the intelligence about what's happening, and so of course you need process mining to provide in part that intelligence. Also task mining, also some of the other technologies that we were mentioning. But if you think about it as a whole, because for the digital twin of the organization, you need to understand what's happening today. You need to understand where you're going. What does that future state model look like? And then you need to optimize what you have today to close the gap and ultimately get to that future state. And so I think, all of these technologies have a role in that transformation journey, and they all come together to create these digital twins of the organization. So you need something like process mining to understand how is the process executing, what are the challenges, what are the bottlenecks, what are the inefficiencies, what are the root causes of those various inefficiencies, so that then you can make an action plan for how you want to move forward. And also when you're doing that analysis, it's not just building new, right? It's also looking at let's look at this region or this team or this department compared to this region, this team, this department. Can we define best practices that then we can roll out more broadly? Is one team overperforming or one region overperforming? And what can we learn from that? How can we make that more systemic within the business? And so I think as the intelligence feeds into the process excellence, right? Which ultimately is what's driving the business value. So again, my take, I don't necessarily think it's an either or, like all roads are leading towards improving the business, and process excellence is the key driver through which that happens.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Max. So Apoorva and I, or our entire BPM team, discuss we do a lot of debate on that. The integration is the key, as you mentioned, because actionable intelligence and process excellence is crucial for DTO and process mining. And while integrating, we get the real value out of this. And actionable intelligence, which ultimately helps to improve it identify areas of improvement, and while process excellence ensure these insights lead to measurable benefits, right? So as you mentioned, the goal is to create a cycle where actionable intelligence, which ultimately drives process intelligence and generating more data and insight to help organization adapt and thrive, right?
Yeah, and maybe can I add just one more point to that? I think because we spoke about Gen AI, obviously it's all the hype right now, right? And I think if we look at previous digital transformation efforts, and part of why they weren't successful, it's we have all this wonderful technology that can make the businesses live, individuals' lives better, but also, generate that overall top line business value. But you need to know how to use it, right? So I would say like automation is not new. Automation is not where Gen AI is right now, but it had its heyday. It's more mature at this point, but when automation and things like RPA first came out, what we saw is people were just trying to kind of throw it everywhere and see where it stuck, like automating everything. And what people came to realize as they were rolling this out was they didn't really understand what the ROI from those initiatives was going to be. Like they didn't really have a goal. They were kind of just like exploring, right? And so if their processes were already broken, and you add automation to it, you're just throwing gasoline on a fire, right? You're just accelerating a problem. So I think that using process intelligence to have that fundamental understanding of the process, like understand what's wrong and shoring that up, certainly that once that paradigm came into play in the market, like the automation deployments were much more successful. But I strongly believe we're going to see the same thing with Gen AI. It needs to be somewhat more strategic. Like it's cool and everyone wants to use it. And I think, yes, for personal tasks, like it can be beneficial without necessarily this greater overarching strategy. But as you're making it a part of your core business model, like you need to understand the processes first. You need the intelligence. Like if you want to get the maximum ROI out of these technology investments, and again, there's lots of different technology we're talking about here, but I think it's a fundamental pillar to move forward there.
Absolutely, Max. Like the example given by you about the automation players realizing the importance of process mining. So process mining market already seen this, like there are so much mergers and acquisition happened in last 4 to 5 years. And like what we can see is like ultimately Gen AI will play a strategic role definitely in this market. Yeah. Over to you, Apu.
Yeah, thanks, Pranjal. I think Shoeb and Max, this conversation feels like a deja vu in some sense for me, because I have, personally, I was associated as an analyst, single point analyst for robotic process automation study at Quadrant for many years. And same thing happened in that space as well, right? When RPA came, everyone was completely blown away by RPA. Everyone wanted to infuse RPA into everything, and every single platform in every corner of the ICT domain, you would find RPA. People tried to forcefully fit RPA into that, and then obviously the bubble has started bursting. I hate to admit that, but I think for RPA also it happened to a certain extent that way. Interesting times, I think, lie ahead for us. But I think coming back to our discussion, I'll again, I'll again take you guys back to an announcement, a very, very important strategic announcement made from iGrafx. I think launching your process simulation, for the fundamental purpose of process improvement, right? So I think that again has caught our attention because we talked about DTO at the start of this conversation, and I mean, we have been following the Process 360 platform for quite some time now. So in that context, if you guys could throw some light on, the kind of things that are going into the process simulation and what is the thought behind that, right? We would like for you guys to elaborate on that.
I can take part of that, and then Max, you can probably add more. So process simulation is not new to us, right? We've had process simulation for a very long time, and we have deployed it quite successfully with a number of clients. What we did now is we completely revamped the technology, right? So we modernized it. We got it into the cloud as part of a SaaS offering, and we also took advantage of the combination of process mining and simulation and process design. That's helpful, right? Because process simulation depends on how accurate the input data is. And we believe that with process mining technologies and some of the other newer technologies we have, we get better, more accurate data from customer systems as well as from the running processes to do better simulations, right? The other part of that also is, taking advantage of AI to say, I can do multiple simulations, but then I can use machine learning to learn the results of the simulation, right? So if you do 10 simulations and you just take all the results, the input parameters and the results, you can now start to understand what to do to optimize certain parameters on your own. Right? You don't have to fix all the parameters before doing a simulation. You just do a whole number of them and then let machine learning figure out which ones are relevant and then give you a better set of answers without tediously going through them one by one. So that's one area we're going into, right? The other also is to actually capture the results better from the, I wanted to do this, I did it, what happened, right? So closing the loop, we think is really important, right? To see whether you're progressing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year basis, right? So yeah, we are really excited about this because we feel like a lot of process mining, task mining companies were focused too much on the as-is and analyzing that, but not on the to-be. Because to-be is harder, right? To-be means that you have to change designs and then you have to run simulations. And we feel like we have an edge there that we do want to exploit in a way and also improve so that we can offer a better overall answer in this area.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, Max, please go ahead. Please.
No. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add because at Quadrant we study DTO and we have been studying DTO and process mining for quite some time now. So especially it's very interesting and like noteworthy to understand the movement of the players who especially appear in both our studies, right? Who operate on the DTO level and on the process mining level. So it's really fascinating right now. So just wanted to add that bit as well, Max. Over to you, Max.
Yeah, of course. And I would just say, in my mind, I wouldn't. I don't think that DTO and process mining are mutually exclusive. I think in order to build a digital twin of an organization, like process mining is an inherent feature that you need, because if you can't get information, like if the model isn't live, if you don't have data feeding it to say this is how the operations are actually functioning today, then you really don't have a digital twin. Like, sure, you could just model it, but a static model isn't worth that much by itself. So I would say process mining is actually part of the DTO for starters. But when we're thinking about simulation, I think Shoeb really hit the nail on the head here. Process mining is really good at understanding the as is, where we are today, but just double clicking on that baseline for a second, when you make the simulations, like, simulation lives and dies by how accurate it is. Like the entire promise is you can determine what the ROI of this change initiative that you're running is going to be, and you can use data to cement that understanding before you make an investment. But if that prediction isn't actually accurate, generally speaking, then simulation might actually be worse for you than if you hadn't done it at all. Like, maybe the gut feeling of someone that's higher up in the organization would have been better. And so I think that there is this really clear link between process mining and simulation, to the level of, with process mining, you can understand this is exactly how long this activity takes, or exactly how long it takes between these activities on average. You can look at the distributions. You can see over time, like, oh, it's Black Friday, we're getting more sales orders. Like, how does the process hold up or break down during those busy periods or during the lull periods, right? And so I think you have all that information. You have information on, as you're going through a process, do we go in this direction or that direction, and in what probability? Like, what percentage of our customers undergo a credit check? What percentage of our customers get special treatment or ultimately need to be escalated to level 2 support? Whatever it is, like, all of that baseline data that's available from process mining creates that fundamental baseline for simulation. So I think that those two together are just like, it's one, super powerful, but I think it's important as we're looking at digital twin, and one of the key capabilities being simulation, and being able to say, what is the impact of this change initiative going to have? Process mining is so necessary for that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you, Max, and thanks for those wonderful insights. Pranjal, you want to take this ahead?
Yes. So, like as Max mentioned about like the simulation and process mining are the important for DTO. So I remember that in morning, Apoorva and I already discussing about this. Like in the coming future, what we will be see that like process mining will be a capability of DTO. So we are debating around that. Like moving forward, so just yesterday only with my other colleague, I'm discussing about the customer journey mapping and customer journey mining aspect of like mapping in the customer experience and customer journey mining for the process mining. So, like, I just wanted to ask a question on that. Like, how do you see customer journey mining as a capability? Since a lot of process mining vendors are offering that capability, and like in the last year briefing session with iGrafx, I remember that you mentioned that developing and absolute advanced journey mining analytics module is crucial. So, what do you think about that, and what are your plans for the implementation of customer journey mining?
So I wanted to broaden the topic just a little bit, right? So there are customer journeys, product, or there are also product or service journeys, right? And the way we came to that, right, is, those are higher level constructs, right, on top of multiple organizations and multiple processes, right? So we worked with, some of our larger customers to say, how should someone that's responsible for overall customer experience, or someone that's a product or a service owner, look at this information, right? So it's very different. It's different from how a business process analyst looks at a process versus how a product or service owner or a customer owner looks at their entire product or service, right? So we did have this concept of journey mapping in the core BPM solution, right? So we had some idea of what that might look like. Now, what mining helps us do is collect data from systems and construct those models, right? Without having to manually model some of this, but also to analyze them operationally, right? So that's why the metrics and the heat maps and all of those things are important, right? So what customers wanted was a simplified view, right? Not exactly a complicated BPMN diagram, but a simplified view of their overall customer journey or product journey that represented multiple organizations and multiple processes, on top of which they could overlay metrics, right? And the metrics can be anything. It could be cost, it could be capacity related metrics, it could be just even application complexity, right? How many applications are supporting this particular part of that journey, what the customer reactions are. And the idea is that we can get some of these metrics from process mining. We can get some other metrics directly from the end systems in which these journeys are implemented. And then we can also get it manually or calculated metrics, right, that people track and use. So you combine all that together, you can see how the overall health of that particular product or service is doing over a period of time, right? And so that's where we are going to say, okay, what is this higher level construct or view that we want to present to say executives or leaders or owners of the entire journey? And then how do we help them figure out, is it getting better or worse, right? And on what aspects, right? So we constructed a system that's flexible, where you can actually add any kind of metrics. You can get them from outside, or you can configure them, and then you can have heat maps and other analysis based on those metrics, right? So it's like a hybrid of BPM and mining combined together into something that is easy to consume. Is where we are actually going with that whole concept.
Absolutely sure. So, like, I am thinking a lot of this, like how it is different from the customer experience, customer journey mining, mapping, and like the process mining or the customer journey mining. So, like, I got the insights that it helps in ultimately for the like each and every department in an organization, not in like the process expert or the process analyst, but like the product head or marketing department will also get insights about the customers, like their journey in the organization. So Apoorva and I already discussed about discussing on this, like how a customer is coming in this process mining, like who is the customer? Is it a customer or is it an end user we are talking about? So like now my concepts are clear about.
Yeah, I think we think a lot about this too, right? Because there is really good information that we have in our process repository and things we have collected from process mining and other ways. How do you make it accessible so that everybody can use it, right? Not just the experts, but people that are doing their day-to-day work, they probably need this information even more than others, right? And so we're trying to make all of this accessible. And again, we come back to GenAI, right? We are trying to figure out how can I use GenAI to make this information accessible to everybody so that they don't have to understand the complexity, right? They just use the end result of the simulation or the end result of the analysis to help them make a better decision at the point at which they're making it, right? So information is useless if I don't give it to you when you're about to do something, right? And the information is useless if it's too much, right? So you got to find just the right amount of information at the right time so that people can make better micro decisions, right? And then these micro decisions will add up automatically to give you a better result, right? So these things can help us get there to the better micro decisions.
Thank you, Shoeb. Thank you for your answers. So my next question would be like, we talked about the customer journey mining. So like the next thing happening in the market is a digital twin of a customer. So I just wanted to know what is your views on that?
Ash, do you want to take that or I can take it?
Yeah, sure. I can start, and then Shoeb, if you have anything to add, please go ahead. So I think so we have the concept of digital twin, right? And we've been talking mostly about DTO, which is the entire organization, right? Or the entire operational structure of the business. But I think for a DTO to work, you need to have digital twins of other enterprise objects in the business. And it's not just customer, right? The digital twin of the customer is one, but as Shoeb mentioned, it's also digital twins of the products, of the services, of the facilities, of all of the different pieces of the organization. And so I think if we come at this from the lens of the process experts and the process analysts that you've been talking about, like the people with experience that are more mature in the space, like yes, at the process level, you can actuate a lot of effective change, right? By looking at it kind of at that higher level and looking at the operations and the throughputs and things like that. But for that level down, you need to better understand all of the things that are attached to the process, and those all come with their own set of digital twins, whether again it's a customer, it's a product, it's a service, it's a system, whatever it is, because those all have their own unique data that is separate from their relationship to the process. And so when you want to do more detailed analytics, or if you want to make more informed decisions, there's a level of depth there that you can only get when you have that digital representation of these objects. And so Shoeb mentioned the repository before, but I think that this is, sorry, I might be jumping slightly to a different point, but I think it's important. We're talking about all this technology that we have, the process mining, the process modeling, the automation, the simulation, all of these different pieces. It's not enough to have these all in their own vacuums, right? Like they really do need to be integrated and have a way that they work together. And at iGrafx, kind of the core construct with our product that enables that is our AI-enabled process repository, where we're bringing together all of this information about the process and the digital twins of these different enterprise objects and how they all relate to each other. So when you have this metadata model that includes things like the digital twin for the customer, it really enables a more comprehensive, but also a more intuitive analysis of the business operations. Shoeb, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I don't, right? And maybe we can address this in another question, right? But we've talked about a lot of different technologies and things people can do. And sometimes it appears sort of overwhelming, right? Like, okay, well, this is a lot, right? How do I actually get started? And I think part of that approach is how do I bring these technologies in is also important to let customers know, hey, don't do everything all at once. We can show you a way to get there, piece by piece, right? So.
You highlighted an important point here, Shoeb. So like end user, like they want the results. They don't know what is process mining, what is DTO. They want to ultimately automate their processes and ultimately achieving the excellence part. So they want that only. So it's an important point here.
Yeah, and I think that's why at least giving some initial thought on what you want is critical. It might seem very intuitive to say, okay, well, I know what I want, but do you really know what you want, right? So I think before beginning any DTO project or process mining or anything else, it's important to know why you're doing it and what do you want. And I think we talk a lot about this because without having this clear definition and a executive sponsor that can help you through the process, it's going to be challenging to kind of get there, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important. Even if you look at like the individual pieces of technology, like we looked at simulation, right? But are you asking the right questions? Like, are you measuring the right results? Is it an initiative to reduce cost? Is it, well, it's really going to be all of them, right? Ultimately, you want to improve productivity, reduce costs, and remain compliant. But like, which of those are important? What are the corporate goals? Like, do you have an OKR framework or KPIs to support corporate strategy? And mapping this to those goals is important. And if you don't do that work up front, like Shoeb was saying, then you're kind of guessing at what the improvement might be instead of like thinking about it in a more structured and strategic way.
Apoorva, do you want to add something here?
Yes, there's a reason. So I'm grinning from year to year because this is exactly where a conversation is leading. I just want to take a step back in this conversation, and we talked about overwhelming. Shoaib mentioned in the end that do they really know, right? Do they actually know what they want or what they are aiming for? So my question is exactly around that. Now we talk to end users as well a lot, and one thing that we observe is that they want to get things done. They think they know what they want to achieve, but obviously they don't know the terminologies, right? Add to that, yes, I blame the analysts to a certain extent also. There are a lot of terminologies that we guys create to differentiate between each other. Even the vendors use different kinds of terminologies. So I think the onus lies on the analysts and the vendors equally. On this background, we were talking to some of the end users and even vendors. They mentioned that, okay, one set of vendors, they call it process discovery. Other set of vendors, they call it task mining. Similarly, one set of end users, when they talk to them, some of them mention, okay, our use case area would be solved through task mining. Others mentioned, okay, this use case area could be solved by process discovery, right? So these things, as simple as something like process discovery and task mining, right? Or even for that matter, RPA, when end users are not able to differentiate, right? So like what's your message to the end users, right? How do they differentiate amongst, because some of them might have the privilege to actually go to a very particular vendor and understand those things from them. But for others who just want to get job done, extending our conversation that we are having, what would you want to say, right?
So for us, right, we want to use clear terms, right, and try as best as we can to do that. For us, process discovery simply means trying to understand your as-is process, right? How do you do something today? That's what process discovery to us is, right? Okay, there is technology that supports that process discovery. It could be that I want to collect information from the desktop, which a lot of the task mining solutions do, right? So I observe people working on the desktop, I collect that information. That's part of the process. I have process mining that collects similar information, but from the enterprise applications, right? So I have these digital traces in my enterprise applications of your process. I can get that information to reconstruct the process. So those are two ways to do it. You can also do process discovery by just talking to people, right? They say, okay, well, this is how I do things, and you write it down or you draw a model. That's the third way of doing process discovery. You have documentation and existing diagrams that you can import in, right? So we look at process discovery as a way to understand what you do, right? And what we say is there are various technologies that can help you accelerate or improve that understanding or get a more comprehensive understanding. And we can talk to you about that, right? So what we have done is we have simplified everything into 3 steps, right? 3 easy to remember. There's the discover step where you try to understand what you're doing. There's a design step where you say, okay, fine, now I understand. how can I make it better, right? How do I change it so it becomes better? And then there is the optimize step, right? The optimize step is, okay, fine, I've designed new processes. How do I make sure that they are optimized continuously, right? How do I get feedback to keep improving, right? And so we can classify the technologies into those buckets so they seem less intimidating, right? Somehow you need to capture your existing processes anyway, right? Whether you're improving them or not, you need to know, right? At a minimum what you do, otherwise you can't get anywhere. So that's discovery, and that there are technologies that can help with that, and we can tell you, okay, should you use, because if you don't have information in your backend systems that you can get through APIs and things like that, maybe task mining is better because you have access to the desktop applications. If you do have access to enterprise applications like SAP or Oracle or Workday or Salesforce, where you can get that backend information, great. Process mining can work for you. Now, each of these things is not complete in and of itself, right? So sometimes they might give you part of the picture, and there is still information in people's heads that you need to get in. There might be tribal information and documentations that are lying somewhere that you have never read. So we are trying to see, okay, well, can GenAI help read those documents or scan in those diagrams to help create this model where certain information is missing from task mining or process mining, right? I don't believe that just process mining or just task mining can get you the entire process, right? It can get you part of a process, it can get you 80% of a process, but you still have to make sure it's completed, right? So we don't want people to think in terms of the technology itself, think in terms of what you want to do, and then we can say, okay, well, this technology works or not. We can even lay out a maturity model that says you're here, do this first, then add this or add that. Because if you spend some time just on the discovery part to get it right, you will automatically find so many things. Even without doing a lot of effort, you'd be able to improve them, right? You wouldn't need AI or other things to improve the processes. You could do it just by looking at it. You can say, for example, why do I do this thing 20 different ways? Should be only 3 ways to do it, right? So that there can be so much low-hanging fruit that comes out of discovery, and then when you get more sophisticated and you've covered that, you can say, fine, let me get feedback from my running processes through data to improve them, right? So yes, we want you to get to a level of sophistication that's great, but there are steps to get there, and each step will give you an advantage so that you can justify the investment in every step, right? So that's how we think about the different terminology and things like that, and we always try to demystify it as best as we can.
Absolutely. I think that makes so much sense. That genuinely makes a lot of sense. Simplifying it for the end users and, just working in that direction. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would maybe just add a helpful tip when I first entered the industry. I forget who told me this, but it kind of stuck with me. So I'm totally with Shoeb. The process discovery is the overarching theme. It's a concept. It's not a specific technology, and there's different avenues that go into it. But specifically, when people ask about task mining versus process mining, if we just look at the words, right, task is like one thing. It's an individual thing. It's smaller. It's more tactical, right? And so if you're looking for and there's different goals, there's like improving the business at like the employee individual productivity level. So like the personal tasks they do in their day to day. These are typically things that like RPA for like small scale automation would make sense. Like it's a task, right? It's task mining. It's inherently smaller. Whereas if you think about process, it's bigger in nature, right? It applies to a segment of the business. And so typically that's a more holistic improvement view. And I'm not saying that you can't use either for both, but like for the most part, I think the words task and process here actually are reasonably good definitions if you just think about what those words mean, and all under the process discovery umbrella, which is exactly what it sounds like, right?
Yeah. Totally.
I was about to say, so I was about to say the same thing which Max said. Like it depends on the user, like what they want to achieve. Process mining gives the strategic insights, like what is happening in the process. So it depends on the end user. Like if they want to improve their entire process, they can go for process mining. But they want to improve their employee level productivity, so they can go for task mining. But as Max said, that like integrating both the insight, like insight from both the technologies, like we get the better insights and better optimization. So yeah, but it's a like it is a complex thing. We know that, but like the results would be good. So yeah.
I would,
So
and I would just add one more thing. Like, Shoeb was actually absolutely correct. Even if you have like a perfect analysis with process mining and task mining together, there is always the human element. There is always something that is not being captured on a system, whether it's a conversation two people are having between a desk that like there's no digital record whatsoever. So the human element is the third piece of process discovery that is equally as important, even if it's not as aesthetic as a process mining or task mining, right?
thank you, Max. So since we talk about task mining a lot, so like we are going through the press release recently. So we got to know that iGrafx partnered with Scan, which is a task mining vendor. So just I wanted to like if you guys can elaborate more on about this partnership.
Yeah. So we wanted, always to have an open platform where we are integrating aspects from additional, software companies and other partners, because we know that no one company can solve that entire process journey, right? I believe that Scan has a very decent process analysis solution, right? I want to say it's task mining, but it's a lot more than task mining, right? So they do capture information from the desktop, but they can string together multiple desktop captures into more process analysis, right? So they would like to think of that as more of desktop process analysis, right? As a little broader term than task mining. We like that, right? So I think it complements the information that we collect from the enterprise systems. Now we have an ability to collect information from the desktop, and then we get a much more comprehensive process discovery. That's just one part of it. But then we can take that information into our repository, right? And then do the to be part. So we can take the scan information that we collect for discovery. We can also take the scan information from inputs to the to be aspect. So we can now design better processes and we can simulate the outcome. And then once we execute, some of these processes, we can recapture through scan, right, whether the changes have worked. So we simulate something, we do it, scan will recapture it, and then we'll relook at it. And so some of the metrics and the journey mapping stuff I was talking about, we can then populate that to say, okay, what's been going on over a period of time and how are you improving, right? Not whether, but how much, how do you measure it? How are things going? So I believe that Scan has a unique approach when it comes to capturing desktop information for process discovery and analysis. We think that's going to be really interesting. We also feel like, one of our major verticals, that's financial services, both of us have a decent footprint there. So our combined offering will offer a lot more value to end customers, right? So customers that already have Scan can use iGrafx. Customers that already have iGrafx can use Scan, right? So we feel like there's a really good cross-pollination there as we go to market with the offering.
Yeah, thank you, Shoaib. So in continuation to my question, I wanted to ask both of you, like, how do you see these two markets, like the process mining or the task mining market? Like we talked about a lot on these topics, but some vendors are combining the capabilities and calling as a process intelligence. So how do you see these two terminologies and the technology?
Yeah, I think both Max and I will have opinions on this, so I'll keep mine short. I think that there is a convergence occurring between task and process mining technology, so you get a more comprehensive answer for both. there used to be a point where people would say, well, task mining is better or process mining is better, and they have their, differences, but I think they're now converging to say we need both to get to the right answer.
Max,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I forget who mentioned it earlier, but the convergence of the markets that we've seen. Just if you look at the activity between the task mining vendors, the process mining vendors, the automation vendors, the BPM vendors, like we've seen consolidation. So we're all trying to get to this point, and I think for process mining and task mining specifically, I'm with Shoeb here. I think they each do still have their strengths, but it's not competitive. They both have different strengths and you want to use them together to get the maximum value. I think like we've reached a certain level of market understanding there. I would say we didn't talk about perhaps another term that is a little bit ambiguous in the market yet, which is process intelligence. I would say from the iGrafx point of view, process intelligence isn't simply process mining plus task mining. It is process mining, or process intelligence is a technology that enables you to go across that entire discover, design, optimize process improvement framework that Shoeb was talking about. So it would include some of the other technologies that we've been talking about, like BPM, like automation, like simulation, and so on and so forth. So I would say like process mining and task mining has like the dust has settled a little bit, like better together. But in terms of process intelligence and like how narrow or broad it is, there's perhaps still some agreement in the minds of the market to be had.
Yeah, absolutely, Max. Like while interacting for the task mining, recently I have concluded that study. So vendors are saying that when we talk about task mining, so it's narrow down the approach of what the vendors are doing. So like we are still debating on changing the terminology for task mining, because when we talk about tasks, so it's a clear definition that we are talking about employee productivity. But task mining vendors are doing a lot. Like the new term coming in the market is like AI and data interaction. These kinds of terminologies are coming in the market. So yeah, convergence is already happening, and it's like market will be like to distinguish between the two terminology would be difficult for the analyst as well. Like how to analyze different vendors. So it's becoming difficult for us as well.
Of course. I'm curious to see like if DTO becomes its own category, like distinct software category, or if it remains a concept that's supported by different technologies. And like you said, do the mining solutions all roll up under a discovery category, or are they distinct? Like I'm not envious of your job to have to sort through all of it. But I think it's important, and I mean, it's like you said, it's happening. We see the consolidation, so we should come to some consensus sooner rather than later.
Yeah, a lot of convergence happening in the market. So in the next 3 to 4 years, we'll be seeing the different terminologies all well, like different terminologies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apoorva, over to you.
Yeah, I think Max summed it up perfectly well, the conversation so far. So, we are almost at the end of this conversation, but again, there is one thing that it's almost a mandate for any conversation in the ICT domain currently, and it has been as the year progresses. I think we need to touch base upon that more with, a very significant understanding about that. I'm referring to sustainability here, right? The sustainability mindset, the sustainability approach is literally grabbed upon by, and it should rightly so, by every vendor operating within BPM and process automation domain and within the ICT domain as well. So, what are your thoughts on that? Sustainability in terms of process mining. How are vendors approaching it? How is iGrafx looking at the entire situation?
Yeah, so
just wanted to understand.
I can start, right? So so what we see sustainability as is just another dimension of analysis, right? So you look at processes or customer journeys or product journeys or whatever constructs you have within your business through different lenses, right? I can look at it from improving operations or improving capacity, or I can look at it from compliance, or I can look at it from sustainability, right? So the idea is once you have a mapping of your process and you have the various activities, business activities understood, you can then apply sustainability metrics to the process just like you would apply any other metrics, right? So for us, sustainability would be a lens that you put on to all the data that you have gathered that's in your process repository, and another dimension to improve upon, right? But the data is collected in the same way, right? I mean, you can get data from systems, you can enter in data and KPIs that you want to actually track and improve, and then we just allow you to do that. We have looked at a couple of customers where they have had sustainability focuses to work on, right, besides the other axis of improvements. But I see that as just a normal, straightforward extension of just adding the right metrics to what we already analyze.
I would I would add that I think when a lot of people think of sustainability, they think it's at odds with performance. So they would, say like, okay, we can make the choice to use the organic material or the like an organic material that perhaps costs more but is more biodegradable in our packaging, right, or something like that. And in that case, that is truly like you have to balance the initiatives. Like those don't come together. But I think in a lot of cases, process intelligence as a whole and as part of your digital twin, it actually gives you credit for what you're already doing. And because when you're optimizing processes, in a lot of cases, you're actually also helping sustainability initiatives. If you're looking at a logistics process and trucks don't have to be on the road as long, or you determine better routes, less gasoline is being used. You have fewer CO2 emissions. Same with like shipping containers. If you're shipping an empty container across the ocean because there wasn't anything for it to bring back at the port that it went to, like you'll make more money by shipping goods back, but you'll also save the environment because you're not shipping an empty container. And I think there are just a number of examples like this that it's actually far more common, in my opinion, that sustainability and process improvement, other business metrics like reducing costs or improving productivity, they're not at odds. They actually complement each other, but the teams that are improving the processes aren't saying, like, they're saying we reduced X costs, but what they could say, they just don't have the insight to do it, is we reduced X costs and reduced CO2 emissions or improved our sustainability score or whatever it is at the same time. And so I think, like Shoeb said, all the data is there. It's just a matter of measuring it in a different way. And I think this applies for compliance as well. There is, of course, internal sustainability policy, but depending on where you are in the world, there's also, of course, forcing factors, regulatory and statutory obligations that companies need to follow. And I think it's just like the risk and compliance team is tracking other risks. Like, again, there's an overlap here. So it's really a part of what's already happening. I think it's just partly on the analysts and the vendors ourselves to kind of educate the market that this is really a combined initiative. This isn't at odds with what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. I think you summed it up perfectly. It's just about looking at it with some other lens of perspective, and it's right there. Great. So I think those were the questions from our side. So Shoeb and Max, thank you so much for your patience and for answering all the questions. It was an insightful session. It was a fun session, most of all. And it's treat for us analysts to interact with vendors one-on-one. So we look forward for future interactions as well. And thank you so much. So that was it from my side. Pranjal, you want to add anything?
No, Apoorva, like everything is covered. So thank you, Shoeb. Thank you, Max, for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you both so much for having us.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you, Shoeb, Maxwell, Apoorva, and Pranjal for such an insightful discussion. Your insights into the integration of DTO, generative AI, and process mining have been invaluable. To our audience, thank you for joining us today on Expertage. We hope you found this session informative. Stay tuned for more conversations with the industry leaders and experts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for updates on upcoming videos and insightful discussions. Until next time, keep exploring and stay ahead in the information technology domain. Goodbye.